Older folks in Ottawa will tell you there was a time when things were simpler, perhaps more innocent, more carefree. A time, they claim, when a summer day was just a summer day. A time when the Rideau River was lined by 4 distinct beaches that were used and enjoyed by the communities along its banks. A time, those older folks will tell you, that's long gone. September 23, 1970. Summer had ended, as had swimming at Ottawa's outdoor beaches. Dr. L.H. Douglas, medical officer for the Ottawa Carleton Health Unit, declared that the beaches in the city of Ottawa were unfit for swimming. On his direct orders, the beaches at Brewer Park, Brighton Park, Brantwood Park, and Dutchie's Hole at Strathcona Park were to be closed. Open water swimming would remain at Mooney's Bay and at 2 Ottawa River beaches, Westboro and Britannia, but they would lack the intimacy of the 4 downtown beaches, and more importantly, their neighborhood involvement. The era of the community beach that had been in place for several generations was at an end. A good way to get the feel of a city is to know its rivers, and Ottawa is no exception. Try following the left bank of the Rideau River from Billings Bridge to City Hall. It's about a 45-minute walk, and you'll pass through several Ottawa communities, Ottawa South, Ottawa East, and Sandy Hill, to name a few. Along the way, you'll pass through the remains of the 4 riverfront beaches. At Brewer Park, the vandalized change rooms remain. At Brighton Beach, the concrete running pier. At Brantwood and Strathcona Park, even less is visible. The physical evidence may be long gone, but the spirit of those who enjoyed the beaches certainly isn't. In 1930, the city limits were the Rideau River, and where Ottawa South joined with Ottawa East, you would find 2 extraordinary community organizations. At Brighton Beach in Ottawa South was a thriving aquatic club. A short walk downstream to Ottawa East was Brantwood Park, home to the Brantwood Beach Aquatic Club. Earl Haynes swam at Brighton, joined the club, and reminds us of those days.
It was a community-owned beach, and you had to have a membership to come in. The city leased the property to the community for $1 a year, and the memberships, this is back in the 30s, were very cheap. Perhaps not at the time, but they appear to be cheap now. $2.50 for a family membership. A whole family could join the beach for $2.50. An adult was $1.50, and a child was 50 cents. And if you didn't have a membership, you had to pay 10 cents to get in and swim. The beach itself was probably the best in the city. It had about 7 rafts spread out all over the water. And then we had a boom up to about a child's armpits, and you weren't supposed to go over that if you couldn't swim, kind of thing. And then it had diving boards, and it was, I guess, the nicest place in the city to swim. It had the facilities.
Art Humphreys might disagree. His father helped found the Brantwood Beach Aquatic Club, downstream rivals to Brighton.
Sometimes in the middle of the summertime and a hot, humid July day, it was great to be able to walk down from the house to the beach and jump in for a quick swim and cool off, and then come out and play ball or whatever we did on the park area, and then go back in and cool off again. Just the fact that the facility was there and you were able to enjoy the outdoors, and the water, and the swimming aspect. We used to swim from one wharf to the other and prove that we could go the distance. And I know the first time I went across the river, that was a big thrill. Mind you, I didn't swim back across the river. We walked up the other bank and crossed over at the rapids, which are just down here. And you can still cross at those rapids. It's only up to your waist.
The history books refer to that time as the Dirty 30s, a period of depression. But all that swimming must have kept Earl and Art, their chums and their buddies, clean and refreshed.
We chummed together as a group, boys. My brother was 3 years older than I was, and he had his friends, and I had my friends. And we would go down to the beach maybe in the morning, and Mother would pack a lunch, and we would have lunch after a while, and we would build sand castles and swim and in and out of the water. And it was a fun thing. You see, the beach was set up so that you had lifeguards, you had supervisors, you had a check room. You came into the change room and changed into your bathing suit and checked your clothes. I don't know whether it was 5 cents or 10 cents to check your clothes, something like that. And then you went out onto the beach, and the lifeguard was up in the tower. And if you did something wrong, you heard about it, and you jumped, and there was no back talk at all. You just did what you were told, that was all.
Well, us young people would probably come down about 10 in the morning and spend the whole day there, you know, and eventually go home for supper. But we'd spend the whole day and swimming and diving and just socializing with each other. And that went on all summer because, well, nobody had any money to do anything else anyway. Couldn't even go to a show, you know, and shows were 12 cents.
Despite their auspicious-sounding titles, the two aquatic clubs kept their pretensions in check. Chances were, if you were up early enough, you would spot one of your bathrobe-clad neighbors strolling down the street for a pre-breakfast dip.
I can even remember coming down as a small child and behind my dad, who would have his bathrobe and his slippers on over his bathing suit, and swimming before breakfast. And then, you know, coming back and swimming through the day. But I lived close enough that I'd just go home and do something else in between. But it was very much a neighborhood beach where you pretty well knew everybody else who was here. It was wonderful.
The Brighton Beach Aquatic Club would try to make their beach even more wonderful. Perhaps inspired by the recently completed Peace Tower, the club planned and erected their own edifice, a 3-story high diving tower.
This was run by committee, and anybody could belong to committee if you come out to the first meeting, which was generally up in the fire hall, number 10 station up there. And they authorized it, and Dr. Smale recommended it. But as I say, he wanted it had to be Olympic standard, and that was 33 feet. And that was quite a construction job, and it was all done with us young guys doing the work, you know. Amazing, you know. You had to drive big steel posts down there, stand in the back of a rowboat that was moving up and down and swing a sledgehammer.
Dozens of boys and girls learned to dive off the tower. Unfortunately, dozens more learned the meaning of strained backs and cut limbs as they plunged off into only 11 feet of water.
During the Second World War, the Army was stationed, I believe, in Lansdowne Park, probably in the famous Cattle Castle. And I guess it was a very hot summer, and they marched down Belmont Avenue where I lived. And I had never really even seen soldiers before, so this was quite something. And they all marched into the beach and went swimming. And of course, all the kids tore down to see all these people. And I remember one of the soldiers dived off the top tower of the diving tower and dove too deeply and scraped all the front of his chest, and I can still remember how bloody that was. It was probably superficial, but it was dramatic at the time.
The tower, like the beach itself, was doomed. Each spring, city crews would dynamite the river's ice to prevent flooding.
And apparently they got a little too close to it and destroyed the base. And once the base got out of line, you couldn't erect it anymore. And I assume it's still out there. I'd love to know, to tell you the truth. I can't imagine anyone pulling it out because it had tons of cement on each post, you know. So I imagine it's still sitting there.
Explosives had destroyed the diving tower at Brighton Beach and had rendered much greater destruction in Europe and the Far East. But the war was over, the baby boom around the corner, and Ottawa was growing like never before. Responding to the challenge were the beaches at Brighton, Brewer Park, Brantwood Park, and Dutchie's Hole. They became informal community centres, daycares, and schools.
After I got married, my husband and I came back here with 4 small children, and we lived on Brighton Avenue. And I would literally come and spend the day with peanut butter sandwiches and, you know, probably Kool-Aid and a stack of diapers and toys. And it was a wonderful place. The children were enrolled in swimming lessons, and you could spend the whole day here. It was wonderful.
It almost became a daycare center for a while. It was great for the parents living in the area because you'd send the kids down to the beach. You didn't have to worry about them. They had the best lifeguards in Canada down here. Every year we had an open house, so to speak, a lack of a better word, where everybody participated. You know, you had the hot dogs and stuff like that, but they put on a beach show out there and they demonstrated underwater tactics with the scuba tanks.
Restless bands of teenagers also roamed the beaches. Sunbathing, touch football, and falling in love, but not necessarily in that order, were the chief priorities. For Diane Verbruggen, the big moment happened at Dutchie's Hole.
When I was approximately 16, going on 17, I happened to come down here, and it was actually the first June, summer day in June, and I happened to, I couldn't wait to get down to the beach, and here was this tall, blonde, blue-eyed fellow standing there, and I just happened to say, "Hi, I'm Diane," and the next thing I know, we're talking to each other, and then we went out together for 4 years.
The beach had a social life that was really kind of interesting in that there were a number of different groups who were regulars. There were a lot of young people. The firemen used to always come on their days off and work on their tans. And, you know, families, kids, a real mixture of people, and every one of them derived a different sort of pleasure from it. But I think there's no question it was a place where boys looked at girls and vice versa, and you know, everybody was falling in love with the lifeguards.
We danced. Sometimes we would twist. A lot of people don't remember those, but the twist was the big thing in those days. And we'd swim in the water and tell each other little secrets or what was going on, what we planned for that evening. And basically get to know our friends. It was actually a meeting place, I think, for teenagers.
Hey, I'm Dave, and I absolutely love to camp.
Why do we do this? Why do we go out here? With the bugs, the bears, skunks chasing you, poison ivy, ticks, you name it. Why do we do it? Because we love it. I love it.
I wanted to take my passion for filming and the outdoors and combine them, and that's why I'm here. Maybe it's a mistake, I don't know.
There are thousands of reasons to support BGC Ottawa. The club provides a safe place where all kids and teens can experience new opportunities, overcome barriers, and develop confidence. But the best reasons? 85% of club members say they're better prepared to do well in life. 93% of kids receive the help they need with their homework. And 97% feel safe. As the club's Chief Programs Officer, I'm living proof that BGC Ottawa changes lives. Learn how at bgcottawa.org.
Relive the magic of Music and Beyond, where classical music meets art, culture, and unforgettable live performances. Only on Rogers TV. Don't miss a note.
everybody. My name is Cara, and I'm here with my friends Shane and Monique, and we're getting ready for season 2 of the Fitness Passion on Rogers TV. Join us right here.
Kids and mothers, teenage lovers, the beach embraced them all. But a new figure was becoming a common fixture along the Rideau. A figure who didn't wear a bathing suit, who didn't stay for a hot dog. A silhouette who came to the beaches with test tubes, vials, and a notepad.
The samples were taken pretty well the same way we take them now. There's protocols set up by the ministry where we would wade out into the water. You get into at least 3 feet of water and use a reaching pole. And take the sample from below the surface so you weren't getting any surface material in the sample, and then refrigerate it. You do your run as quickly as you could and then get it to the lab immediately for analysis.
The beginning of the end for the Rideau River beaches came on July 31st, 1968. Mr. Sidney Quinn sued Nepean Township for $50,000. He claimed negligence on the part of Nepean Township in permitting or causing the pollution of the Rideau River fronting on the plaintiff's land and premises. Mr. Quinn's legal action wouldn't get very far, but it did draw attention to the deteriorating water quality of the Rideau River.
The Department of Environmental for the Province of Ontario, the Department of Municipal Affairs, the Regional Council of this area, and the City Council are all concerned that we should take steps to see to it that the waters in and around this community are brought back into a proper condition so they can be used for bathing.
The problem was the storm sewer system, a system that was twinned with the sanitary sewers. Each rainfall would result in massive fecal contamination of the river. The beaches that had been enjoyed by so many were now health hazards.
In the mornings, sometimes we arrive at work and there would be this hideous green slime that went out at least 30 feet. And it didn't smell very nice at all. And we were really quite concerned about going in there and swimming. But every day we had to swim our legs. We had to stay in shape for the event. You know, thank goodness it never happened, but we had to be in shape to rescue someone. And I can remember wading through this 30 feet of green slime and just really hating every minute of it, having to get out far enough that we could swim in the regular water.
Testing of the water quality began in earnest. The city tested, the regional municipality of Ottawa-Carleton tested, the province tested, Pollution Probe tested, the Ottawa Citizen tested. Figures such as 400 counts of fecal coliform per 100 milliliters were recorded at Dutchie's Hole, 800 counts at Brighton Beach. Levels above 100 counts were considered to pose health risks to bathers.
They'd break out the test tubes. They didn't have a boat. They'd come down, and as I said earlier, they'd come down and take the test right at the foot of the river here, or down there on the other side of the beach. They wouldn't go out to the middle of the river.
They used to have these little vials, and they would go out into the middle of the water, and the river, I should say, and they would lower it in, I think if I'm not mistaken, they had to lower it 5 or 6 feet down in, and then the vial was taken away by one of the city workers for testing.
Faced with overwhelming evidence that the beaches were health hazards and wishing to avoid the impending political fallout, the various levels of government promptly resorted to that time-honored tradition of passing the buck.
As far as the public reaction, I don't really know. I remember there was a lot of controversy at the time. I wasn't really involved other than taking the samples and making the decision, but there was some controversy with the medical officer of health at the time who made the recommendation, and other organizations like Pollution Probe, who had done their own sampling, and the Ontario Water Resources Commission, who had a role at that time, saying that it was unnecessary to close the beaches. Of course, they were making their decisions based on different criteria than the medical officer of health was. He was concerned with the health of the public, and in his best judgment, there was a risk there to the public.
Finally, dye was released at Mooney's Bay. The deal was to watch the dye and plot the flow of the river and the raw sewage. A plan was then dreamed up to release a massive amount of chlorine into the water, which would then flush the river clean. The studies and finger-pointing dragged on, until finally Dr. Douglas had no choice.
I guess 1970 was the first year that it became a big issue, and the sample results from that summer were all well in excess of or primarily in excess of the provincial standards. And that was when the medical officer of health, Dr. Douglas at the time, made the announcement that he was going to recommend that the beaches be closed for the following summer after he looked at the results for all of 1970.
It was a real disappointment because we had hoped to take advantage of the swimming facilities at Brighton Beach, because then we had a 4-year-old, and it would have been really great to have her receive swimming instruction again. And we came down to Brighton Beach only to find out that it was closed. And that was a real disappointment to us.
Just like if you lost your cat, I guess, your dog, it was a real downer.
The river was thought to be sick and not yet dead. The closures were to be only temporary. The city had big plans for new sewer systems and pollution-oriented search and destroy missions that would clean the river and reopen the beaches.
They would go through on a house-to-house basis, they would find the source, they would then send their crew in and rectify the wrong, where it was a misconnection or a septic tank that was leaked. Now, that program, in my opinion, was only moving at a snail's pace. And what, in fact, we've done in the last month and a half, we've accelerated that program to unbelievable extents, where we now have crews out on a regular basis. We're much more aware, our attitude has changed drastically. And in fact, I'm very hopeful by the summer season of 1972 that the Rideau River beaches will be, the water quality will be such that they will be fit for recreational purposes.
The beaches didn't open for the summer of '72 nor for '73, and 23 years later they remained deserted. The bulrushes and weeds may have staked their claim. Silt and mud, not sand, now lines the bottom of the beachfronts, but much still remains.
I've moved out of Ottawa south, and other than come down to see some friends on Belmont Avenue, I don't come down here very often, but I do. Every time I go by, I look at this place, because it's such an important part of my life down here, really. It was super, you know. It was super, yeah.
We only think now of Mooney's Bay, but there was Brighton and Bradwood and Dutchies down there in the Berg, and they were all interesting beaches and used a lot by the local people.
We used to go out in the diving board, might spend 2 hours out there, everybody taking turns diving and trying to outdo the other guy in a 1.5 and a swan dive and so on, and it was just sheer fun, you know, and all quite innocent. It was, you know, it really was.
It was a shame that in the 50s and 60s something wasn't done to clear it up. Now we are 30, 40 years later, and we can't use the water as a swimming facility.
For a family, when I had my kids here, you know, it was beautiful, you know. I used to bring them down here, and they all became great swimmers, and that was the beauty of it. It was, of course, we could put our bathing suits on at home and come down here, you know, which was good.
On Tuesday of this past week, we had some of the seniors from Central Park Lodge out. They come out every year in their little bus. And one lady said to me, she said, you know, I just love sitting by the water. She says, I don't swim or anything, but she said, to be able to sit beside the water and look at it and the changing aspect of the river, she said, I just love that.
It was a way of life. It really was. You get out of your classes, you could hardly wait to get down there to see everybody. You had something to do then, which was obviously healthy, the swimming, but you could hardly wait to get down there because it was a meeting place. You saw everybody, you went out and you played your raft tag, swimming around, have a bag of chips, have a hot dog.
Every time I'm there, I think back to the time that I spent lifeguarding and the wonderful times that I had, and also I sometimes feel rather sad that the beach is almost empty because no one can swim there anymore, and you know, I can almost visualize the thousands and thousands of people splashing around in the water that I used to have to watch the whole time.
You had 6 rafts out here. You had a running pier, a diving board on the river. you couldn't go wrong for open water swimming in a fairly large city, which it is. You couldn't beat it.
People who maybe cannot normally get out into the country, people who don't own cottages, kids that don't have a chance to go to summer camp, people who don't own cars. All of these people have been deprived of the fun of swimming in open water.
I'd like to see my grandchildren experience what I experienced as a young teenager. That freedom, that not having that fear, getting into the water, enjoying yourself, really enjoying yourself.
It was there and it was part of our life, and yes, it was just, I think we took it for granted for sure. And I think so when I moved away and went to college, and I would look out of the house I was living in a subdivision and thinking, oh, there's no water, there's no beach, there's nothing, yeah.
Happiness, true happiness. We really enjoyed ourselves down here.
You kind of took it for granted you lived here, and you just assumed that was a part of your life, and it never occurred to you that there was no beach, just